Back in 2020, when things were a bit mad, Revenue introduced a temporary wage subsidy scheme to help employers keep their employees on the payroll. This was put in place as an emergency measure from about April, I think, to August of 2020. So how it worked was your employer, if you had been affected by this, your employer would have received a subsidy from Revenue in order to help pay the wages. Unfortunately, this was the last minute one-off measure that was put in place at the time. And what happened was, if you're an employee and your employer was getting the wage subsidy, for that time period, you were not paying your payroll taxes in the normal way. And as a result of that, Revenue didn't collect enough payroll taxes on your behalf. Most employers notified their employees that they were claiming the subsidy and to be aware that this might happen, but unfortunately a lot of employers didn't tell their employees they even were getting the subsidy, and as a result the employees now are hit with tax owing for the year 2020. A lot of employers in fact helped their employees to repay any liabilities that were owing. But for a lot of people today, they're still getting letters saying that they owe tax for the year 2020. I just had a DM from one of my followers that this has happened to them. They got a letter relating to the year 2020 that they owed €1,600 in tax. At the moment, there are two ways that Revenue are going to collect that tax. The first, and is the default and is probably happening to you already, Revenue will reduce your tax credits over a 4-year period, and they will collect the tax owed by reducing your tax credits and allowances. The easiest way to check this is go to your latest tax credit certificate on your My account, and you should see something saying tax credits reduced by, and it'll say TWSS or PAYE underpayment, something like that in there. After Revenue has collected enough tax, they will revert your tax credits back to normal. The second way you can get rid of this liability that you owe is to make a payment yourself. This is what I mean by some employers have offered to help their employees with this, but unfortunately not a lot have. On your Revenue account, you can simply go to your dashboard and scroll down to make a payment, and in there you can make a payment towards your 2020 liability. One of the most common questions I get is, how do I check if I owe tax for that year? Because you think you might have been affected by the wage subsidy scheme, or you might have got a letter like this follower, or perhaps you've already done your income tax return and you see that you owe tax for that year. The best bit of advice I'm going to give you is to make sure you are still doing your income tax returns even if you think you owe tax, because sometimes in the preliminary stages it can come up that you owe tax, but then once you do your return and claim all your medical expenses, your flat rate expenses and any other applicable additional tax credits, before you know it you will have reduced your liability and you may not owe anything at all, or perhaps you're going to reduce it significantly. So if you think you're one of those people that may have been affected by the wage subsidy scheme back then, it's always worth doing your income tax return either way. If it turns out that you do owe tax, please don't panic. Revenue aren't going to come chasing after you. All they're going to do as the default is reduce your tax credits and collect it over a couple of years. The only situation where I know you have to have all your liabilities cleared and your income tax returns all up to date is if you are going for the Help to Buy scheme. Another reason it's really important to do your income tax return is, let's just say you did owe tax for the year 2020. Then you went and did your income tax return for the years 2021 and 2022, and you realised you actually had a lot of maybe medical expenses that you know you're going to get tax back on. Revenue will offset any refund against tax that you owe from a prior year. So what you want to be doing is either reducing that out or clearing it with any refunds that you are due. The only way you can do that is by doing your income tax return. So I hope that helps answer any questions on the temporary wage subsidy scheme back in 2020. And if you have any questions at all, pop them in the comments below or send me a DM.